Destiny of joy. Everything in life is a search for truth, for wholeness, for love. Andy and Eddie lie in the tall weeds just below the flight path, watching the bellies of planes almost touch the tops of trees. Home, for now, is a cardboard box they use as a table and two vinyl chairs borrowed from an abandoned homeless camp. A bullet stuck in one of the seats. The boys troll the trash bins behind the Susan apartments, take catnaps on fire escapes, and get cherries and grapes from generous Mr. Kim, a grandfather who loves all kids, at his vegetable stand near the bus station. In their in-between life, they watch the planes. They love watching the planes. A moan from above spews wayward fumes across the sun, like a demon child left alone in a wallpapered room with a knife. The plane trembles, dips on its side, then trembles again. "If I was a pilot," Eddie says, "I'd want a butt right now." "Shit, man, it's tipping too much," Andy screams, watching the day run out of light. The pilot touches one wheel to tar, then takes off again, pulling away from the place it needs to be. "Less than 1% who go down survive," Eddie, the CNN junkie, says. In the wind's dry wake, a newspaper wraps itself around Andy's leg. 14 Mexican border crossers die, the headline reads. "They suffocate in the desert," Andy says. "All the families got was a garbage bag filled with melted, rotten clothes." "Or this," Eddie says, grabbing an empty six-pack holder doing cartwheels in the wind. "I found an osprey once," Andy says, pushing floppy bangs away from his eyes. "Got its neck caught in the plastic loop of a six-pack holder, just like that one. I dragged him to shore on my surfboard." "Did he make it, Andy?" Eddie says, falling dollar bills clipped that morning from the tip jar at Starbucks. "We drove him to our vets," Andy says, sinking lower to the ground as sirens fill the air. Eddie stuffs the money into his pocket. "My mom, she wanted to cry," Andy says, "but she held it in for me." Eddie pats the dirt around an anthill, his motions soft with care. "I could feel the bird's heart beating against my leg, Eddie," Andy says. "I want it different for him." A loud hurt cracks the open air around them as the plane makes another unexpected turn. "Do you wonder who's on board?" Eddie says. "Last time I flew, my father was supposed to meet me in Phoenix. Our new beginning that never happened. I was on the plane back to San Jose the same day, sitting next to a buff Korean chick who said I couldn't afford her." The boys laugh. "I think there's a woman looking down on us who got pregnant on her honeymoon," Andy says. "Only she hasn't told her husband yet. He's sitting next to her right now, eating peanuts and wondering when the hell they're going to land. He's read all the in-flight magazines the stewardess gave him, and he's thinking he'll get charged way more than he should for long-term parking if they don't land soon." "How the hell do you come up with that shit?" Eddie says. "My mom got pregnant with me on her honeymoon," Andy says. "That's what she told you, buddy," Eddie says. "My mom says she gets pregnant just looking at the guy." "And does she?" Andy says. "The day before I left, I saw an EPT box on the kitchen table. She could be halfway through another pregnancy by now." "What are we doing, Eddie?" Andy says, turning his pants pockets inside out, then let them hang there like that. "We're killing time until we go back to the Susan apartments," Eddie says. "Chill out, man." "I mean, what are we really doing?" The wayward plane, circling the city for 1 hour, maybe two, surges upward suddenly, past clay hills the color of crushed cinnamon, seductive in the evening sun's glow, past blueberries ripening and the end of trees, past two boys, thin as matchsticks, facing one another in side-by-side phone booths, dirty fingers ready to dial home.